When you start walking in your identity and people start to see that they can't control you the way they used to be able to control you, they will hate you. They will despise you. And truthfully, you have to ask yourself, was it ever about love and care and consideration from the beginning? That's just the truth of it. So at the end of the day, that's how this goes. When you're doing the healing journey, be expecting of people to not reciprocate to be respectful of your choices. They're not going to reciprocate your healing. That's another thing. They're not going to reciprocate your healing at all. And truthfully, it's not their job to. It's not their job to reciprocate your healing and the choice that you decided in choosing you. It just doesn't work like that. And that's where you have to get out of that people pleasing and that fear-based mentality of trying to get others to like you, which is very common when you've been in narcissistic dynamics and things of such. Okay? So if you have any questions, put them in a comment. I came on here to say that because I got a DM about it. I get many DMs about that. How do I know I'm healing? Why do I feel guilty for going no contact? Why does my family still make me feel that I'm the problem, even after I've explained to them the concerns and they refuse to change, but they always blame me? This is a part of the process. But if you're seeking validation from people who have already shown you, we will always start at point A. There's an understanding that comes with, I have to accept them for who they are. And that's the biggest challenge when you're trying to navigate from such toxic dynamics. The reason why you stay stuck so long is because you're trying to get them to accept the new you, when truthfully they don't want to accept the new you because they can't control the new you. I hope you got that. That's the problem. That's a situation that we can't fix. And not just for family, that's your jobs, that's relationships. People stay in toxic circumstances so long, longer than expected, due to the fact they're waiting on people to see them for who they are. If you don't get up and get out of there, if you don't leave that situation when people have shown you for 5, 10, 20 years that they're not going to change, are you okay? I'm here to tell you, as a therapist, it's time for you to move. But you'll stay. You'll stay. And you've been trained to stay. That's why I always talk about inner child after you went no contact. You have to heal that inner child, because those triggers, that toxic dynamic of what you have been used to accepting, will show up in jobs. It will show up in relationships. People really don't understand the perspective of how their trauma lingers even after they have disconnected from the source that caused the trauma. The foundation that built the trauma, that established the trauma. What do I mean by that? You'll meet someone with the same narcissistic characteristics in a different face because your inner child is still bruised, hurt, and damaged. You've not done any work. You just went no contact with your mother. Well, that's just half of the solution. You just disconnected from your toxic family. That's just half of the solution. There's some remolding that has to happen within you. There's a transformation. There's an awakening that has to happen with you. And the only way that happens is if you heal the broken pieces that you're trying to continue to mend together. Those got to be healed. And they have been exposed to toxicity, and they're still challenging the idea of family, of what the narcissistic family want them to believe about themselves, and break away from the judgment and the condemnation that has been projected upon them by their dysfunctional narcissistic family. I told my last live, we could talk about relationships, we can talk about jobs, we can talk about the environment and social perspectives. But the moment you talk about family, it's a problem, because society regardless of toxic behavior and dysfunctionalism, have conditioned others to believe you never neglect family. They can put you through trauma. They can do the worst, but you never talk about family. And as a therapist, I've seen so many people suffer and stay in toxic dynamics due to the distorted archetype related to family. That's why I always emphasize behaviors and characteristics. One of the hardest things for people to break away from is family. You would think it's relationships. No, it's family. It's not relationships, it's family. Due to the toxic norming of what family is, the normalization of family. Society expects family to be Hallmark cards and Charlie Brown. When people are going through holy hell behind closed doors and can't break away from the mental bondage that's being projected by their family. It's all good until we start talking about family. And now it's a problem. Well, truthfully, if we look at the behaviors and the characteristics, and if they're toxic, they're toxic. If it's dysfunction, it's dysfunction. If it's traumatic, it's traumatic. We don't wear roles and titles when we're analyzing toxicity. As a therapist, roles and titles do not matter to me in the field that I'm in. I look at criteria. I looked at DSM-5 criteria. I look at the characteristics and the behaviors that's related to the presenting problem. But it's frustrating because the context that we're speaking of is so dear and enlightening to society in relations to family. That's why it's convicting. It's convicting. You don't talk about my mom. She's narcissistic, but you don't speak about that. You don't talk about my dad. They're narcissistic, but you don't speak about that. You don't talk about my sister, who's in constant competition with me since the day we were born, and refuse to acknowledge their toxicity. You don't get the right to talk about family, but families was keeping you stuck. I said it. I said it on today. Not just the family, the behavior and the toxic environment that's not conducive to your mental health. In therapy, one of the things that we do, we get to the root cause of the problem. And that could be a plethora of factors. Could be many factors as to what we're looking for. But in the therapy modality that I use is a psychosocial perspective. I'm looking at your biological, I'm looking at your social, and I'm looking at your psychological. And the social perspective is, who are you connected to that's influencing this current stressor in your life? What is your social dynamic? Oh, you don't say. That's what I look at. All of those aspects tie into what is causing the stress related to your life, why you can't move into different positions, into different transitions in your life. All of that. I cannot highlight one area of your life without looking at the rest. I would be doing you a disservice as a therapist. And I don't want to do that. If you're feeling discombobulated after going no contact, that's normal. If you're still hearing the narcissistic person voice in your head, that's normal. But what are we going to do about it now? Because we can't allow them to continue to live rent-free. They've taken up enough of your time. They've eaten up enough of your life. On time you cannot get back. But here's the beauty about that. If the abuse and the trauma and the betrayal never happened, you wouldn't have had enough courage to disconnect from the things that no longer serve you. See, there's a silver lining with this. Most of the time we keep having these ruminating thoughts over and over again, saying, why me? Why me? And I'm going to say as a therapist, why not you? Look at you. We're at the stage where change can happen now. We're at the stage where you're contemplating the idea of betting on you now. That's the silver lining. So it takes for the betrayal to happen. It takes for the trauma, for you to go through the traumatic, toxic abuse, for things to shift. If we did not experience that, what foundation do we have to fix the problem?